In 2001, the WWF was victorious in the Monday Night War, having bought out WCW and ECW. The promotion looked poised for further glory, but things haven't turned out the way Vince McMahon likely planned. With ratings down to alarming rates and ticket sales for live events at near record lows, the WWE is scrambling to fix its problems, even as a new promotion, All Elite Wrestling, stands ready to give the WWE its first serious competition in decades. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at the WWE's current woes and asks the question, how did it all come to this? The Monday Night War did the unthinkable, taking the existing wrestling audience and building upon rather than splitting it between the WWF and WCW when WCW began airing Nitro against Monday Night Raw. Consider the following average numbers from the height of the Monday Night War up until its finish. In 1998, Nitro did 4.43 and Raw 4.35. In 1999, Nitro did 3.66 to Raw's 5.9. In 2000, Nitro was slipping, going down to 2.71, whilst Raw was still at an incredible 5.88. Where things started to slow down eventually for Raw even in 2001, when Nitro did 2.27 and Raw was still left standing with 4.64. Having defeated WCW and ECW falling on hard times, the WWF swept in and purchased both companies, becoming the only game in town. It only made sense that, as Jim Ross would say, business is about to pick up. One can only imagine the visions of a windfall that Vince McMahon expected as fans flocked from ECW and WCW to the WWF in order to get their wrestling fix. Imagine his surprise when this didn't happen. The WWF didn't see a bump in their numbers as fans went to the WWF, instead they simply stopped watching wrestling. One argument that needs to be made is that ECW, WCW and the WWF were three distinct brands, offering something a little different than the other ones. Granted, they were all wrestling promotions, but they had a slight or strong variation, similar to how people prefer Pepsi-Cola to Coca-Cola. While some people will drink either soft drink, some are vehement about their taste and don't like the other. It's arguable something similar happened with the WWF, as neither WCW or ECW fans had zero interest in the WWF product. Was it arrogance? It's arguable the WWF's dominance made it arrogant too. After years of being in survival mode during the mid-90s, Vince McMahon and his superstars built the WWF back up into a national juggernaut. The victor may get the spoils, but McMahon took things to new heights, dismissing loyal partners and over time the fans too. For example, the WWF moved from its longtime partner the USA Network to Viacom's TNN, which eventually became Spike TV, after USA and Viacom sued over whether USA didn't match Viacom's offer. The deal was lucrative for the WWE, with the Los Angeles Times reporting, Viacom's offer included a five-fold increase in USA's $100,000 weekly payments to WWF, $3.5 million for 7 annual WWF television specials, more than $1.1 million for a new TV series and movies about wrestling, and $8 million in fees for transferring the shows to Nashville Network, according to court papers. In 2005, Spike TV opted not to renew its deal with the WWE, and the promotion returned to the USA Network. Another example of McMahon's arrogance is when the WWF ran its famous Invasion angle, a potentially lucrative angle featuring WCW stars coming to the WWF and seeking to take out the promotion. Regrettably, Vince McMahon chose not to buy out the contracts of WCW's biggest stars, resulting in the WCW Invasion being underpowered. Perhaps even worse, McMahon made the focus of the Invasion angle all about the McMahons rather than WCW, or ECW for that matter. The angle proved to be a letdown despite great numbers for the angle's initial pay-per-view, the aptly named Invasion. McMahon's mistaken belief that he could make a WCW Invasion work without the promotion's biggest names, coupled with the way he pushed WCW as a clearly inferior company, killed what might have been one of wrestling's biggest angles. Therefore, the WWE had no choice but to create its own competition. It quickly became clear that the WWE had thrived when it had competition, something no longer the case with WCW out of business, and aspiring promotions such as Ring of Honor and Total Nonstop Action unwilling or unable to compete against the WWE's Colossus at the same level. The WWF came up with a clever idea of creating its own brands, with Raw and SmackDown featuring its own roster of wrestlers with separate touring shows and pay-per-views. Early on, the Wrestling Observer pointed out what had to be done to make it a success. split the shows completely. Once the rosters are determined, they're locked, and nobody goes anywhere except on very rare occasions. Each side needs to have their own separate pay-per-views. There should be no mention whatsoever of the other crew, ever. A different crew needs to write each show, no Raw guys on SmackDown house shows, and vice versa. If someone jumps to SmackDown and is booked for a Raw show a week later, too damn bad. It should go without saying that there must be no SmackDown merchandise at house shows, and vice versa, and certainly no highlights from one show airing on the other. The WWE struggled to keep the brands apart, and when they did meet, SmackDown tended to be portrayed as the weaker brand. Once the WWE began its super shows, the writing was on the wall and the brand split was finished. They revived the brand split in 2016, but with the wildcard rule muddying the waters, it's uncertain how much longer it will last. Also contributing was the unsuccessful business ventures outside wrestling. It can be argued part of the WWE's problems stem from the company branching out from the business of promoting professional wrestling to focusing on outside interests with the hope of utilizing corporate synergy to boost their successes. Whether it's WWE Films, the WWE's failed music label, or the XFL, they have tried to expand its success but typically failed. There's nothing wrong with trying to generate new revenue streams, but the company's numerous failures suggest it should stick to wrestling ventures. For example, the WWE streaming service, the WWE Network, has been successful, and rumor has it the company plans on expanding it into different subscription tiers. There was also noticeably a change in tone. Fans used to the sex and violence of the Attitude Era noticed the WWE toning its product once it won the Monday Night War. The change was gradual, but with the WWE victorious, the promotion seemed to feel it no longer had to use sexy storylines to the same extent as it had. While the product still featured blood, it scaled back its use of blood as more family-friendly advertisers returned to sponsoring WWE programs, eventually all but abandoning blood. The change in tone did not go over with the fans, whether it was John Cena changing from the Doctor of Thugonomics to a more child-friendly chain gang soldier, complete with what The Rock calls Cena's Fruity Pebbles clothing line. At the same time, the WWE transformed its women's division from an athletic-based division to one featuring lingerie models engaged in Playboy pillow fights and the introduction of the Divas Championship. To be clear, there were still talented performers in the women's division, but the focus on wrestling was a thing of the past. WWE then started the trend of ignoring its fans. One of the WWE's biggest problems has been its adamant stance against acknowledging the fans' wishes when it comes to who gets pushes and who doesn't. While there have been exceptions such as Daniel Bryan getting a main event match at WrestleMania 30, together with the recent Kofi push, these moments have been rare. Whether it's the WWE pushing Roman Reigns despite a strong fan backlash, the WWE failing to push wrestlers such as Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman, who received heavy cheers even when they worked as heels, or its continued reliance on Brock Lesnar, the WWE has turned a deaf ear to its fans, with the fans tuning out in turn. Half-hearted fixes. Part of the problem has been the WWE's reluctance to make any change of note. The fans have repeatedly been told that the WWE realizes the WWE universe is unhappy, and the company is willing to change. Consider these remarks from Vince McMahon as he addressed the WWE's financial downturn. McMahon noted that WWE is not getting into the football business, the bodybuilding business, or the restaurant business, 3 high-profile unsuccessful attempts to branch out in the past, but was more looking to work with companies as far as things that are already in place that the company does well. The remarks were made 8 years ago, which is fascinating as McMahon is just months away from relaunching the XFL again. It seems that Vince McMahon is good at playing lip service to the fans when it comes to addressing their complaints. Their latest pledge to change came in December 2018, but fans have seen little change since. The company's latest move in hiring Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman to run creative has given some fans hope, while others wonder whether anything can change as long as Vince McMahon has the final say. What's for sure is that the WWE has been in a steady decline since the Monday Night War ended. While people will forever debate whether the wrestling business is cyclical or not, experiencing ups and downs in popularity that have less to do with the product than it does with fads. There's certainly support for this when one looks at wrestling's tremendous surge in popularity between 1984 and 1990, followed by a steady decline until roughly 1996. A surge followed until the end of the Monday Night War. However, the industry has yet to experience any sort of resurgence, perhaps due to the lack of competition. Support for this decline is made by the ratings decline around the very end of the Monday Night War. Consider the ratings for Raw reflect that loss in interest. In 2000, the company was receiving their highest ratings in history, averaging a 5.88 rating per episode. By the end of 2001, with Austin as a heel for most of the year, the rating had fallen to a 4.64 rating per episode, with a noticeable decline taking place in months following Austin's heel turn. In 2002, ratings continued to decline, with Austin walking out of the company in June because he reportedly didn't like the way he was booked. Raw ended up with a 4.01 average rating per episode in 2002, and ratings would continue to decline over the years. Consider Raw and SmackDown's ratings over the next few years. We'll let you pause the video for this one. The numbers have continued to drop, with news sites typically reporting on how other Raw and SmackDown have reached low ratings not seen in years. Consider this data from Forbes' Alfred Konuwa, who mentioned, "This week's episode of Raw and SmackDown Live were down 30% and 25% from 2018 respectively. Raw drew a 2019 low of 2.185 million viewers, while SmackDown Live logged a 2019 low of 1.833 million viewers. To put this in perspective, Raw's average viewership through 2018 saw a 32% decline over the past 5 years. The trend is disturbing enough that Fox executives want to meet with the WWF to discuss their problems before Fox begins airing SmackDown this fall. Additionally, the WWE stock has taken a hit as Wall Street seems to have wised up on the WWE's tired excuses for why business is underperforming. Even those unfamiliar with the workings of the wrestling world caught on when Vince McMahon and WWE executives repeatedly blamed superstars being injured as the reason for the company's sagging revenues. Looking back at these numbers, it's clear the WWE has been in a steady decline, yet relied upon its momentum to continue making money. While it would be incorrect to describe the WWE's business practices as robbing Peter to pay Paul, the company has strip-mined its future with lucrative deals it may have not been able to deliver on. For example, the WWE's financial windfall from its deal to run shows in Saudi Arabia has come at a tremendous public relations price. While they were able to negotiate 2 blockbuster deals with the USA Network and Fox, both networks have made it clear they expect things to improve, and to do so soon, hence the drastic measures they're recently taking. With fans continuing to lose interest in the product, the looming competition from All Elite Wrestling and its business partners demanding results rather than rhetoric, the WWE must be asking itself, how did it all come to this? Sadly, the answers have been in front of it for years. Indifference to the fans, arrogance, and a stubborn refusal to change the product to reflect changes in the fans' taste. But there you have it guys, a look at how WWE's current woes and a look back at how things went from sugar to shit. Do you think the WWE will find a way to get back to its former glory? And if so, how? Be sure to leave your comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.